Hello, everyone. This is part 2 of session 22 of Pre-Socratics to Augustine, also called History of Philosophy 1. Today, I want to talk about two Epicurean claims that can be understood as responses to puzzles about infinity. One of these claims is that atoms and void are both infinite. The other claim is that every atom is not physically cuttable, but theoretically divisible, however not infinitely. It has so-called theoretical minima. You can cut it up theoretically so and so many times, but not infinitely. And that is called, it has theoretical minima. Now, why would anyone come up with these two proposals? There is a complex discussion about infinity, cutting things up, infinite parts and wholes in ancient philosophy, and it goes back to some of the ideas that we already encountered when we studied Parmenides. At the time, we discussed that there are two followers of Parmenides who are very much invested in defending Parmenidean ideas. One of them is Zeno, the Eleatic philosopher Zeno, and he comes up with these so-called paradoxes, quite a number of them, which are meant to show that Parmenides' claim that being is one and his claim that being doesn't move are true. And the kind of general structure of these arguments is that you stipulate the opposite, or you stipulate the negation of these claims. You stipulate that being is in motion, and then that leads into absurdity. Or you stipulate that being is many, and that leads into absurdity. Now, one of the ways in which Zeno makes this argument is to think that, well, you kind of imagine being, you need to now put on your Parmenides hat and sort of return to all these ideas of being the well-rounded sphere, which is one continuous whole, all of those ideas. So now you imagine that you were to divide this, maybe just into two parts. But then the thought is, well, if you can divide it into two, then you can divide it further. And once you do that, then you can divide it infinitely many times. So now Zeno assumes that this is implausible or leads into absurdity, because if you were to cut something up indefinitely, then nevertheless every part would have some size, whatever size, but some size. So now you have a limited, finite whole with infinitely many parts, each of which has a size. And that doesn't work because, in some sense, like a simple, intuitive way to put it is that infinitely many things of a given size simply do not fit into a limited whole. And there are a number of versions of this kind of argument put forward by Zeno, and the kind of precise versions are on your handout and in the text that we study for today. But our question now is, how should we understand Epicurean atomism as a response to those kinds of puzzles? In early Greek, pre-Socratic atomism, there wasn't yet a lot of reflection on those puzzles. But here we are studying Hellenistic philosophy, and we must assume that the Hellenistic philosophers already are familiar with discussions in Plato's Academy, partly also with discussions in Aristotle. So they are aware of problems that had not yet been discussed in depth prior to Plato and Aristotle. And Epicurus' atomism is sophisticated in the sense that it aims to accommodate at least some of these difficulties. Now, the proposal that atoms and void are infinite is defended as follows. And you can sort of see the resonances to Zeno's puzzles. If the void was finite, then infinitely many atoms wouldn't fit into it. If there was a finite number of atoms in an infinite void, then they would be kind of like drifting away. They wouldn't hit each other. They wouldn't form compounds. If the totality of things, both atoms and void, were finite, then there would be a kind of border of the totality of things. But once we have a border or limit of the totality of things, we are going to ask, so what is outside of it? And then the totality of things is not the totality of things. So all three other options, that either atoms are finite and void infinite, or the void is finite and atoms infinite, or both are finite, all three other options are shown to be implausible. That is how one of the claims, namely that one of the claims related to infinity, that atoms and void are both infinite, is defended. And for the homework assignment, I want you to think about the other claim, that there are theoretical minima. Why do you think that Epicurus needs this claim in order to respond to Zeno's puzzles?